What's going on, reef builders? I'm Jake Adams in the studio by myself because Evan's on a well-deserved vacation, which means I have the opportunity to do a fun video that we've done before. So let me just show you what we're working with here. My trio of Gonioporas here are definitely getting just a little bit big for this space. So this is the one that I want to cut up, and if you'll see, this coral is about this tall, the skeleton's about this big, and if I wanted to frag it myself, I don't have that much clearance on my standard Griffin bandsaw. So note to self, if you're ever getting one of these, make sure to get the XL version. So we are going to take this over to Aquatic Art, and my friend Chris Kapp, who has a ton of experience producing, conditioning, and growing Gonioporas, he's going to give us all a little tutorial on how he likes to frag various Flowerpot corals. So these three here are all Gonies. These are all grown from frag. I swear, man, when I bought this frag, I had zero expectation that I would ever get it to a point where I would need it to frag. There was just a long period of time. Some of you newcomers might not know, even the last 5 years. Before then, every Gonie was a crapshoot. Some would live, some wouldn't, most wouldn't, and we didn't really know how, but as you've seen in some of my other videos, I got plenty of Gonies over there in the frag tank featured in the previous video. So we're gonna grab that guy out, and then the other one that we're gonna pull out here is a Bernardpora. So this one, I thought it was a Gonie when I first bought it, but as it grew, it became a little more encrusting and definitely a lot more aggressive towards the flower pots around it. It had some sweeper tentacles or some sweeper polyps out earlier before I cleaned the glass in front of it. But this is a nice kind of a burgundy with yellow tip tentacle colony of what's commonly called as short polyp Gonie. I'm gonna go ahead and grab these corals, put them in a bucket, and we're gonna take them over to Aquatic Art on the south side of town. So I'll see you in just a little bit.
How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for letting me come over and give me a little tutorial on Gonie fragging. I've enjoyed a lot of Gonie specimens in your shop over the years. I have plenty. They're almost this big. But my saw is just not big enough. And so I'm hoping you can teach me and everyone else a few things about Goniopora Care and Gonie fragging.
Absolutely. Yeah, Gonies are certainly easy to frag. The skeleton is very porous, so it makes quick work on the bandsaw. You know, I think one of the biggest things that we found is that 25 years ago we were bringing in a certain species of Goniopora that was really, the track record was lousy. I think just about everybody lost all their Goniopora. And since then, collectors have brought in a bunch of different kinds of subspecies of Goniopora, and some of them have been really resilient. So I think one of them starts with the kinds of Goniopora that we've been getting in have been more adaptive to reef life. Obviously, we as a collective hobby have gotten a lot better at keeping them. But one of my tricks is with Goniopora especially is that we overlit them most of the time. They have to go low at least at the start so they can adapt, and then you can move them up a little bit higher. But I think every time the ones that I killed the most was because I gave them too much light, and they need lower light to start. They need to transition in lower light.
So a few years ago, the flower pots were split up into Goniopora and Bernardpora. Like, what's your experiences between the two different groups?
Bernardpora encrust a lot more, but I think they're a great coral. It's almost even for beginners, because I think that they most beginners aren't going to overlight them, and they can see some visible growth with the encrusting. So they're great, but we have a lot. Of course, we have to show the Hurlock Gonie because that's the one that both you and I have seen for a long time, you know, for a lot of years.
You want to show us that one?
Yeah, let's go over. Now here's the Hurlock Goniopora, and we had one big colony but the orange sponge was actually going up the stalk and killing off the Goniopora, so I had to cut it up and make 3 pieces. Ironically, I made 4, and these have been in the same spot for, I don't know, 10 years now. And why that guy bleached and these are not bleached, I have no idea. But that is the same thing as the Hurlock Goni. Of course, last weekend I had 5 people that wanted to buy that, and I had to explain to them that that is healthy, that is not. You know, and so, but this one's a really good one. We have them in service accounts all over the place. I've given them to so many people, and they're a good Goniopora to work through. So that's one of my favorite ones of all time. And then in grow out, we have, here are some of the Hurlock Gonis that we have for sale. And we have another colony over here that I'll cut up. I don't know why he's closed right now, but yeah, the Hurlock Gonis. And then we have a lot of Bernardopora over here, a couple different species of them, or color combinations. I don't know if they're different species, but they're at least different colors. And these are the ones that we've had for a long time, and they just keep growing and growing and growing. And when you look at some of these grow out discs, you can see that they get all the way down to the bottom of it, and that's when we know that it's time to give it a little trim. But just keep encrusting and keep encrusting. These are frags that we did probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. And of course it's stuck to the, but obviously due for a bigger rock or a grow out tile or something, because it has nowhere to go now.
Do you have an estimated par level for this particular tank? Because I see you only have 2 strip lights going on right now, but do you run those T5s as well?
I did for a long time, and I was getting I think I was over lighting things, and I think that the combination between the nutrients that we had in here at the time and the lighting, so it was a little bit too much lighting for the level of nutrients we had, so I turned off the T5s. Running just LEDs for about a week and a half now, and I'm seeing some of those colors come up. As we get our nutrients back up, then I'll probably put the T5s back on. But yeah, right now we're probably running, especially where those Bernardoporas are right now, maybe 50 par, maybe 60. I haven't, my par meter's out right now, but very low par, especially how the lenses come on the LEDs. And they're thriving in that.
And I see over there you have, you know, it's like a wine red variety that's practically in the shade.
Yes.
Barely enough light to see it.
Way over here, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and doing real well. As you can see, we cut it quite a few times, but it's encrusting down to the bottom of it. This one we've had for a long time. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
So while we're on the subject of flowerpot corals, what are your thoughts on Alveopora?
You know, Alveopora, I think, used to be my Achilles heel for a long time, because I would get the nice branching Alveoporas in, and I'd probably put too much light on them. It would be my feeling. And I didn't have very good success up until about maybe 10 years ago. And so I think Alveoporas are every bit as good as Gonis. I think they're easy. Once again, if the nutrients are too low and the lighting's too high, once they close up, holds true with Bernardopora and Goniopora as well, is that they don't do well. They don't come back. They don't recover very well with them. We have a couple that we have frags of these Alveoporas. And this is one of my favorite ones. It has a green rim and it has a blue in the center, the oral disc. And one of my customers in Colorado Springs has had that growing for 15 years now. And so she brought us a big chunk and we fragged it up. I think you're right in the sense that the fragging, especially with that coral, has helped it, because there's different critters that come in with them. There's boring worms that can come in that we'll have to dip, and usually when you cut them out, then there's no natural predators that are coming in on those. And once they're fragged out, then they don't have to contend with that, and they're much more resilient to adapting to aquarium life.
So, obviously you have a lot of success with flowerpot corals, but what are some of your challenges? So I occasionally will just get like a little bit of a bacterial infection that seems to travel slowly.
Sure.
And you've taught me a lot about like the bleaching. Once that happens, it's kind of no going back.
Bleaching, once they bleach, find a almost zero light cave and stick them there, and then mark your calendar for about 3 months later. And then if they come back, they come back. But I think that's one of the Gonies, just in my experience, who just don't recover very well. And so that's what it is starting them off right in a lower light situation, so you don't go through that bleaching event and have to go through some kind of contention. Like that Hurlock Gonny that we saw up front, I probably need to move him way in the back and just kind of forget about it for a while.
Do you tend to give up on bleached ones?
Luckily, to owning a store, then I can always find a corner where I can stick stuff, and probably about 50% of the time it'll come back, but it takes a lot of patience to be able to do that. I can't give up on Gonies because I love them so much, so I have to try, but it's probably 50%, about 3 months to get to that point.
So tell me about your saga with the amazeballs, because my piece is still alive.
Is it?
It's it's suffered, it's bleached, it's pulled in. I brought it in here, and after a 6-month triage did nothing. I put it in the shadiest corner in like a hospice area to just die out of sight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm up to like 8 good, almost long polyps.
Is that right? We had it. When we first got the amazeballs, it was configured a little bit different, but I put it in this tank, way on an outcropping, so nobody can touch it. It was doing great. It was beautiful for about, I don't know, maybe 3 months or something like that, and I was just starting to. And I think what I did is I involved karma in the whole thing, because I was talking about fragging it.
Oh.
And the reef god said, nope, 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 we're gonna bleach you now. All the polyps retracted. Tissue looked great, and I couldn't figure out, took it out, did a couple dips. We did some iodine-based dips to try and see if that could dislodge, if there was a bacterial infection or something, and I could not get it to come back. On a side note, we have 2 of our customers that are in maintenance accounts that have thriving, big, nice colonies, and I don't know the difference. We approach the reef hobby the exact same way, so it's still a mystery for me on that.
All right, Chris, I have brought you a couple of my homegrown, one Goni, one Bernardpora. Now, I am not a coral fragger, so I don't want mutilated corals. We make some frags out of them, but how do you suggest we propagate these guys but still keep a good looking piece remaining?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a spot about this far down on it, and I'm just going to run the bandsaw and just cut the top off. That top will be so flat, it'll be perfect. You can put it right back down on a growth tile, and I bet within a couple weeks it's going to just encrust on and start growing on that growth tile. And then the whole edge, from about 1 inch down, then we can take that and just cut frags into, all the way around. Same holds true with this Bernardipora. Like I said, the skeleton structure is so porous that the bandsaw just goes right through it, and so it's really easy to cut. And so we'll do the same thing on the Bernardiporas. We're just going to cut the top off, create a colony that can go right back in, especially on a flat shelf piece of rock or a growth plate. And then, all the rest you can cut it into frags pretty easily.
All right, so do you have any special considerations during or shortly after fragging?
Yeah, I like to, one of the things that I'll do is I'll change the water in the bandsaw between the 2 different species. I think that's been really smart, especially like if you're going through Euphilia to Montes. I mean, changing the water is going to be one of them, and then also I always add iodine to my bandsaw water as I'm cutting. And then also, as soon as I soak the frags in an iodine solution as well, before they're going to be mounted. And one of the biggest things that I do is that once they're all cut, because the bandsaw cuts through and it gets kind of a little bit of a sludge, you know, that comes through, some of that will attach to the frags or the main colony, and after the glue is set, to go back through with a turkey baster and make sure you get all that sludge, all that slime from the coral that's collecting that sludge, and make sure it gets off, because sometimes whatever current flow, it won't get it off and you'll have some burn marks with it.
And that's a good practice for all kinds of frags, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Most of them you should go through after the glue set, is to go through and just hit them with a turkey baster and get some of that stuff off. Allow the polyps to come back out a lot quicker so the coral can start healing.
So I know you have a Bernard Pora very similar to that one, but what do you think of that Goni?
This Goni is awesome. I haven't seen that particular color combination before. It is very pretty. We've had ORA red Goniopora for a long time, and this one definitely has a different color than that. So pretty unique coral.
When I bought it, I got it because it was kind of had a blue stalks, so you know, just kind of a pale blue interior. And so it actually, when it's fully open, all you see is pink tentacles. But when it's half opened, you can really see like those blue stalks, and as it's partially closed up now, it looks really, really neat. So, well, let's jump into fragging, and I'm just going to let you just kind of narrate what it is that you do.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll go back over here. So we have our bandsaw set up. I use a little bit of Seachem reef dip. Any kind of iodine based, in my opinion, works the best for it. Seachem makes a great product. Lugol's would work great too. So what I just check to make sure that I don't have too much water splaying around. I put some iodine in the water already, so it's already in there. And so what I'm gonna do is I'll start with the Goni, and I'm gonna, God, this thing's, it's always hard to cut something that's so pretty. But what I'm gonna try and do is I'm gonna try and take a cut about right there, and cut all the way through, and I can get a flat surface. This can go directly back onto a different disc, and like I said, I think within 2 or 3 weeks it'll be encrusted on that disc, and you'll just keep growing. So, and then the rest of them will have this whole trim, and then we'll have a bunch of frags out of it. So I'll start the bandsaw, kind of get my spot, and then we'll just keep applying steady pressure. Sorry, Jake, I got a little sideways. Now I'm gonna try and take, and what I will do is I'll just cut this in half. Still gonna be a little bit old. All right. With Gonis, I'm not really concerned about going in between polyps, because you would make yourself crazy if you try to go in between, and they recover pretty well. But you can see limestone, and then this was probably the original frag plug that you had it on.
Not the original, but early on.
Yeah, different layers of what you've had. So I'm gonna get these back in the water, and I'm not putting them back in here because I don't want all the Goniopora juices to start messing with the Bernardopora. I'm probably gonna make a cut all the way around this edge, and then I can cut into small pieces, and then small pieces on this one as well. I might take one bigger size piece because I want to grow it out, because it's such a good Goniopora that I'll cut one, and that Jake is letting me have. But yeah, let me cut that. And then I have that, and I can slice those into nice size frags that go all the way around. Same thing with this. I'll cut it around, and why don't I just do it? One, and then go five. And the most important things also is that I don't want to put that on a frag plug because it doesn't, it's not uniform. Plus, it's going to take that Goniopora a long time to grow all the way down and encrust onto the frag plug. So I'm going to trim that. You can see where the living tissue goes down into about there. So I'm going to try and cut that here and make it a little bit flatter to sit on a frag plug a little bit better. Yeah, ever wonder where your calcium goes? There it is, right there.
Can you show us a couple more examples of the thickness you like?
Yeah. So on Gonies, that's about perfect. Any shorter, I want to cut it shorter because then it's going to encrust on the frag plug a lot quicker. But I think that I would cut into some living tissue and kind of hit some of those heads and the bottom of those heads, and I don't want to do that. So all these are kind of just about the right size for what I'd like, where my comfort level is as far as cutting Gonies. So, and it's important, in my opinion, to also make them to where they sit flat. So we don't have any big edges on the sides, because they're going to want to encrust. And so the sooner I can get them to a frag plug, the sooner they're going to encrust. Once they encrust, then I feel the growth rate goes up considerably once they encrust. So, okay, so with the Goniopora, now we have a couple different options. Flathead screwdriver, one of the best things on the planet.
Oh yeah.
And if I can get a good enough angle in there, and then it popped right off. Oh, there's the frag plug. There. I knew it was there somewhere. But so you can see there's a few different kinds of worms under here. Here's the original piece of glue that you can see from there.
It's just crystallized in time.
Yeah. And so I'm going to put this back in here for right now. But it also makes it a little bit easier to reduce some of the bulkiness, so I can get under the bandsaw a little bit easier. So I was going to cut it about right here, and then we can put it back on a frag grow out tile. So this one, same rules apply, and so I'll just start cutting it right through and try and make it as flat as I can. So we just finished cutting this, and Jake and I were just looking at this and wondering what this ring was from. Was that water parameter, growth, something that was going on in Jake's tank during that time? Don't really know what that is.
Fascinating.
Not my best cut, but you can kind of see how it went on. It'll still go on a frag. I'll probably trim this down a little bit so it sits a little flatter, because I don't want any gaps in there. You can see where the worms were underneath that other one. Just trying to avoid having any kind of worms or anything under there. They're probably good, but anything that lives with the coral is going to have some kind of an effect. So we've got some Gonies frags and Goniopora frags, and so we're going to put them aside for just a second. And then I have my coral glue from Ecotech, and I'll put a little dab on each one. Sorry, I'm kind of shadowing. And then we'll do a Gonie first. So once again, I'm going to dry that off carefully, and then I will put it on and make sure it covers all the way around. I want to make sure there's no gaps underneath, and then make sure it's secure on there, and then I'll put it back in the water so it can cure. I need probably a little bit more water. Same thing holds true with the Goniopora. We have a nice flat cut, so I'm going to dry it off, and then I'll put it on, and then kind of mix the glue so it covers the entire underside. So I can't get anything to live underneath. There's glue all the way around. I don't want to put too much glue, because as the coral encrusts, it'll have to go over the glue. I want to get it to the frag plug as quick as I can. So we just kind of repeat the process until we're done with all of them. Once the glue sets, we'll put them into whatever tank we're going to put them in, so they can grow out and heal. But after the glue sets, then I'm going to go back through with my turkey baster and make sure I get all that sludge and coral juice and
Like a half to an hour later?
yeah, usually yeah, about a half an hour later. Glue sets pretty quickly underwater. I'm not hitting it too hard with the turkey baster, but I'm also not being too gentle because I want to get all that stuff off.
Wow, you must get so many questions about flower pots in general. What are some parting thoughts for someone who is thinking of fragging or getting a frag or getting their first Goni?
The biggest thing, like we've talked about earlier in the video, is start it low, acclimate it to light. That's the biggest thing. Don't worry about feeding unless your water parameters are in good shape. You know, we all have our numbers, and we want to keep those numbers consistent. One thing that we've learned a lot more about is nutrients and making sure your nutrients aren't zero. We've been, first 20 years of this hobby, we're trying to get down to zero, and we realized zero is a bad number. Elevated, meaning about 5 to 10 nitrates, and 0.05 to 0.1 phosphates is usually where we try and keep the sweet spot. Gonis would probably like a little bit even more. As far as feeding goes, we broadcast feed our tank. You can spot feed it. Something like Referoids is a good product. There's a lot of great feeds out right now that will benefit it. But once again, we humans think feed means health. Water quality means health in most corals, and that holds true with Goniopora as well. So feeding is the second part. Water quality is the first part. Low light, good flow, they can be zipped around. Even these Herlock Gonis can probably take a little bit more flow than what we have them in right now. And then once you get everything set and that the coral's acclimated, then start a feeding regimen, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, whether you're spot feeding or broadcast feeding. 20 years ago when I first saw the Herlock Goni, after killing tons of them and seeing this one survive, Gonis have always been something I really like to grow. And what more could you ask for? They're flowy, they're bright colored, they're fairly hardy as long as you have a good setting for them. So,
is that Jedi mind trick as big as it looks?
The Jedi mind trick is as big as it looks. Sometimes it's hard to get scale, but yeah, it's my number one calcium intake coral, I think, in this tank. Obviously, I've let it go a little bit farther than it should because now it's going to be hard to eradicate. Well, not eradicate, but at least cut it back. But all of our frags come from this front row, and I can just cut this whole front, and then within about, I don't know, maybe a month or two, that growth rim, that purple rim will come back, and we just go back through and cut it all. Jake also said that if we get 1,000 likes on this video, then he'll come back and do a whole reboot of what we've changed with the show tank here at Aquatic Art.
Very cool. Thanks for your time, Chris. I really
thank you.
appreciate your insight, your knowledge, and especially your experience. You know, we all have like general ideas of how to coral, but the more minds we put together, the more we create like a better, clearer picture of what we should do.
Totally. The whole goal is to keep these things alive and get them out to as many people as we can so the species keeps going. And it was nice to cut Gonis. Gonis are easy to frag compared to some other things. So, and if I messed up, it was your coral, so it didn't matter. So.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris.
All right. Thank you.